The season of Magic has just kicked off with a brand new seasonal mode. And the seasonal mode is basically anytime you play a special card, duplicate and replay that special card. Seems like a hectic, crazy, weirdness kind of thing going on, especially now that there are new rules implied or applied with the new patch that just hit us today, being that there is an actual unit minimum, 13 unit minimum. So it's not just going to be a whole no unit fiesta. Regardless, lots and lots of spells being slung here. So I want to make sure that you guys are well prepared for the Season of Magic's seasonal mode. So with the rules set out for the seasonal mode being that any special card that you replay or that you play will then become duplicated and replayed, you kind of want to sort of take one direction or another. You can either do it by playing very control, damage oriented, like all on your opponent's side of messing with their stuff, or on your own side of creating units and boosting and doing things along those routes. Mixing and matching could work, but in reality, I prefer to go down the route of relying just on my own board, my own units, my own point totals. So when I kicked this off, the first thing I thought of was just mass amounts of units and mass amounts of point boosts. It's always fun to swarm the board, and if your opponent is playing cards like Alzur's Thunder and whatever, if you're just outpacing them with units, you're gonna win more games than you lose. So that's the route that I took. And obviously there's different ways to do it, but I want to give you a deck list that you can kind of take out for a spin in the first few rounds of seasonal mode and maybe have some fun and change around with. This is what I played with a few games with early, and I liked, and I tweaked it a little bit. So we're gonna go through the cards, and I will tell you how to go about playing it. Okay, so we have 2x Ancient Foglet. Just standard, 4-drop. I have the Archispore ×2, 2x Vran Warrior. I have 2x Arrakis Nest, and here's one of those special cards that we're talking about. Again, this is putting 8 bodies on the board. I have 2 Harpy Eggs. I have 2x Predatory Dive. This is a great card. Predatory Dive is great, especially with Arrakis Queen, which is our leader, because what this does is, if necessary, it'll just clear the board of 2 ugly units on the opponent's side. Immunity be damned, it doesn't matter. You just play this twice, and you'll always get the smallest unit back, be it another Arrakis drone or whatnot. So Predatory Dive ×2 is an automatic put in. I have 1x Forktail. I have Elfin Onion Soup. Another interesting card. So Elfin Onion Soup is, it's one of those cards that not many people play. Basically, what this says is destroy 2 of your own units of the same border color. So either bronze or gold. So 2 golds or 2 bronzes to create and play a unit of the same color from your faction or neutrals. In reality, what are you doing with this? Well, you're either crushing one of your Arrakis drones or 2 of your Arrakis drones to recreate a unit. Now, again, double this card up, and you'll have to play it twice, meaning that those 2 Arrakis drones that you killed will then respawn because of your Arrakis Queen ability. You crush those 2, and then you're changing those 2 units into 2 random bronze cards. Now, you could hit home runs with this. You can't. Nonetheless, you're killing your own units, which is kind of a lot of what the synergy is with Arrakis Queen in general. So Elfin Onion Soup as a 6-point card. Bone Talisman. Now, Bone Talisman is very simplistic. Boost all of your units by 1. Many times, this card will represent 30 or more points. Why? Because you are going to have a full board way too often. You're going to be playing this to boost every single unit on the board and then do it again. No problems, no questions asked. I also have 1x Lacerate in case your opponent wants to get freaky on their side of the board as well, and Row Stack, no problem. Lots of points coming there. Arrakis Behemoth. This is just a card that you can throw out early, even if you don't have a full board of Arrakis drones. The boosts from the Arrakis Behemoth on the drones is not that important. It's more a matter of getting units on the board and spreading out and swarming a little bit. You want to create bodies, and Arrakis Behemoth does that. It's also not a bad card to put out there. If you have a row full of Arrakis drones, it's a pretty good card. Not necessarily a finisher in any way, shape, or form, but a good round 1 card to play. I have Whispering Hillock. Again, this is destroy an allied unit, then spawn and play a base copy of it. Now, this is a great thing to do with something like let's say, your Yennefer. Because not only will it kill the Yennefer but replay her, but you can do it, you can kill another unit as well, but it'll also put that Yennefer in the graveyard, which you can then renew later, because we are also playing Renew. Renew 2 units. Big time. Awesome. This means that you can go ahead and dump some of those big fat cards that you already have in the that you've already played. Things like let's say your Glusty Warp, which is already also in here. You can play Glusty Warp early and get her back, no problem. You can also play your Frightener that you flipped for 12 points of immunity coming back. It's really, really good. There's so much interesting combinations, and I want to make sure that you guys are not really just locked into this deck. You can go and explore. I'm just giving you some of the cooler uses of the cards that you can pair up with Arrakis Queen and really swarm the board. Also, Triss Telekinesis, create and play a bronze card from your deck. So it could be Bone Talisman, another Arrakis Nest, all kinds of craziness. And finally, we have Yennefer, which we've already spoken about. Boost all your units or damage all your units. It's whichever you're into, because with the Vran, you can go ahead and start firing wildly. Or with the Yennefer, going ahead and boosting all your board. You'll have a full board more often than not. And lastly, Uma's Curse, because creating 2 random units is just awesome. All right, so what's the basic strategy of this? Well, the basic strategy is just create as much freaking chaos on the board as possible. Your opponent's going to probably do the same. There's no real way to sort of predict your opponent's plays, because the spells are going to be pretty crazy and they're really going to drive you mad. And doubling them up on a lot of them is really difficult. Really, the biggest bane of this deck is Lacerate, but I haven't come across a lot of it, which is fine. Early on, play the cards, that your bronzes and this and that, and maybe save an Arrakis Nest and a Bone Talisman for your end game. Cards like Yennefer, Triss Telekinesis, Glusty Warp, etc. Use them, because if you grab Renew, you're fine. And if you play Triss Telekinesis, you're often going to find something of value, and your predatory dives are really, really, really key. I can't really give any kind of in-depth strategy session for this, because it's seasonal mode, so it's meant to be complete madness and chaos. So all I can say is go with this, give it a shot. And one thing I really do want to warn you about is you might run out of row space. The 9-unit row limit, I've been pretty much locked into having to discard cards because I just ran out of space, because I've had tons and tons of Arrakis drones that I did not know what to do with. So be mindful of that. It'll take some practice, but you will have a lot of fun with this deck, swarming the board, getting tons of points, and just having a good time. So there it is. I'll go through the cards one more time. I've got 2 times Ancient Foglet. I've got 2 times Arcaspore, 2 times Vran Warrior, 2 Arrakis Nest, 2 Harpy Eggs, 2 Predatory Dives, a Forktail, Elfin Onion Soup, 2 Bone Talisman, Lacerate, Arrakis Behemoth, Whispering Hillock, Glusty Warp, Frightener, Dormant, Triss Telekinesis, Yennefer, Uma's Curse, and Renew, all under the watchful eye of the Arrakis Queen. That is the seasonal swarm deck. Go ahead, give it a spin, have a good time, and let me know how it goes. So I, at first, was not really a big fan of seasonal mode with the first renditions of it, and mainly because I just didn't play it enough and didn't really want to devote too much time to it. But now every time a new one comes around, it's always fun to, knock out the quests and try some freaky deaky stuff, and there's always some weird rules associated with it, and this one is particularly chaotic, and I kind of like that. One thing I will say that is worth noting is that anytime that there's a spell that has kind of like multiple steps to it, like, for instance, for a card like Renew, you need to be able to understand that there is a sequence to it. So you'll play Renew, and then you'll choose a card that you want to bring out with it. But before that card hits the board, Renew replays itself. So the Renew will duplicate and replay before the entire spell is resolved. Now, I don't know if that is intentional by CDPR or not, but that's the way it works. So if you renew out card A, before card A hits the board, Renew will replay and card B will come out first. So if there's a particular sequence that you want to do, you have to renew out the unit that you want to play second first. Hopefully that's not too confusing, but whatever the second renew is that you bring out will always hit the board before the first one. It's a little backwards, but that's the way it goes. Nonetheless, that is the deck. Have a good time in seasonal mode, and before we dive back into another round of ranked. And it has been my pleasure. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, you can drop them here in the YouTube channel. And as always, I do always appreciate every time you hit that subscribe button. It means the world to me. So thank you so much for that. Be kind to one another. I will see you very soon. Adios.